Hello and welcome to Comms Business Live. Today we're going to be talking about unlocking UCaaS success and finding out how data can be used as a real portfolio differentiator. I'm delighted to be joined by Mike Wilkinson, Chief Product and Marketing Officer at Akixi. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Many thanks, Charlotte. Great to be on.
Thanks for having the time to spend with us today. So first off, just for anyone who might be unfamiliar with Akixi, what can you tell us about your company and what you offer to UCaaS service providers?
Okay, so Akixi's been in the market now for about 15 years. We were incorporated in 2008. And in that time, it's very much been working with cloud communication providers and UC providers to enable them to sort of surface the what's going on behind the scenes on their cloud comm services. So generally, we look at the data that's coming out of, say, calling patterns and provide insights into that. So basically, you know, if you invest in people or technology, then generally you want to understand what benefits you're getting out of that, or you're getting a return on investment that you expected. And Akixi is the solution to actually prove that in.
That makes sense. And you talk about kind of the insights that your platform can deliver. And customer experience and customer engagement have really come under the spotlight in recent years as a key focus for businesses that are looking to achieve continued success. I think we're all aware of the challenges businesses have faced in that time period with kind of the big P word, and then also just the economic challenges that have come plenty of people's ways in the last year or so. So what role do you see voice and calls as playing in enhancing that customer experience?
Yeah, so I think, you know, there's been a sort of big push towards digital channels. But the reality is that about 70% of engagement is still resolved using the voice channel. So even in the digital channel, you may start off in the digital channel, but something like 40% of those engagements still need to be resolved with voice, i.e., you know, I can't get what I want from the online service, and therefore I call back in and try and speak to a human to actually resolve it because it's a little bit more complicated or so on. So voice is very much there to stay, and it's an important part of that investment side of things. And you see that, you know, businesses want to make sure that they're engaging the right type of customer with voice as well. So there's some specific characteristics you'll see around the types of engagements that end businesses will utilize for voice. And typically, I would call it patience versus the value of the engagement. So, for example, you know, if it's a high value transaction and patience is low, then you'll see that a lot of analytics will be required. I'll give you an example of that. You know, your pet's sick, okay, you want to get it resolved as fast as possible. So you will call around multiple vets, get an appointment that afternoon, okay? And so there you've got potentially a high value transaction, your pet medical services, times the patience, which is if you do not get it resolved in one call to that particular vet, you will move on to the next one. So understanding the analytics around that in the veterinary world is important. So the immediacy of the data combined with understanding who those customers are is an important part of, you know, one of the use cases that we look at.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think within the customer experience world, I think it's kind of tempting to focus on kind of all the new shiny ways customer queries might be resolved. But you're absolutely right. It really is voice that's at the heart of all of this a lot of the time. And everyone can relate to that. No one wants to be listening to the wrong recording that's not helping them out. People just want a human on the end of the line.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, so we've got the one use case, which is sort of patience times value. But then you have other situations where, you know, the business is going through a change. Okay, so for sake of argument, You've got primary healthcare where they've got a very large volume of calls that come in between sort of 8 and 9:30, and they start putting more people on the front end of the business to manage that call volume or put in place, you know, more sophisticated call handling techniques. When you do that, you want to understand what difference it's making. Are you getting a 30% improvement in your customer interactions, 40%, 20%? So change is part of, you know, the analytics process as well. We've got some customers who, in say retail, have moved to equip their front of house staff with things like mobile headsets, so they can perform multiple duties at the same time. Again, you need to monitor and understand whether or not that's been effective. And then the last area is compliance. So, you know, are you meeting specific SLAs? And those can be what I would call soft compliance, where you make the SLAs yourself, or hard compliance, where they are regulated industries and you need to actually deliver that. So, for example, in healthcare, access to services, you have to get calls back or returned within, say, 2 hours. Or in something like retail motor, where you're a franchisee and you need to prove in the customer service metrics for a particular car manufacturer. So are you answering calls within 3 rings? Do you make a call back to a customer who you sold a vehicle to, and you have a voice recording of that call? Those are the sorts of things that are required from a compliance perspective.
Absolutely, that makes sense. And where does WebEx calling come into this area? What adoption trends are you seeing in that space?
Yeah, I think, you know, Cisco have been quite focused on moving more and more of their business over to cloud communication services, and WebEx calling is a key part of that. And that comes from a couple of different areas. That can be from the historic BroadSoft base, where they've looked at, you know, a movement towards WebEx calling, and WebEx sitting on top of BroadWorks, which is, you know, I guess a very common use case in the UK, because BroadWorks was a very commonly used platform by various different service providers. And then also it's the migration of things such as UC Manager, Call Manager, HCS towards WebEx calling as well. So Cisco's been pushing that hard. There's a lot of WebEx calling out there. To us, it's just another call control platform which we can apply our analytics to. So from an Akixi perspective, we can support BroadWorks environments, we can support WebEx calling environments, and in the not too distant future, we'll also have the support for Teams environments as well. But, you know, WebEx calling, because of Cisco's very strong position in the marketplace, is an important use case for us. And we've got a number of customers who are in process of rolling it out at the present moment in time.
And kind of talking more directly about your analytics that you mentioned there, obviously using data effectively can really help business leaders to build the right strategy to evolve their business. How does Akixi kind of help its partners to unleash the power of data?
Yeah, in a couple of different ways, actually. So at the front end of the sale, the partner is making a promise in some respects, right? They're saying, okay, so this technology is going to be put into your business and it will have these types of benefits. How do you prove it? And that's where we come in. Okay, so they build in the analytics component to accompany the UC solution. And as a result of that, then, you know, it proves in that the ROI was met and so on. Okay. The second piece is that analytics is a great opportunity to provide value add for the channel. So not only do they get to position the technology in the context of the business customer. So for sake of argument, if you're in retail and your lost basket value is £300, then, you know, potentially you can show a revenue adjustment of several thousand per month, and, you know, the analytics can prove that in. But the other thing is, then once you've got those analytics in the business, then the the channel can go in and work with the end customer to start to tailor reports for that particular customer's requirements. So the Akixi solution is quite flexible. So you can have sort of, you know, out of the box reports that gives you all of the usual information, call volumes, call answer times, average call answer time, etc., etc. But the value then for the channel comes in to say, okay, let's sit down and understand your business better. And then we'll start producing reports for the business owner that gives them that extra bit of insight so they understand things are working well. I'll give you a good example. I ran into one of our end customers a few weeks ago, and they were running a small sales desk. They had 20 people on it, something like that. And I was talking to the business owner. He said, look, at the end of the day, I don't want to know about the norm. Okay, that doesn't really help me. All I want to know about is the exceptions, right? So who isn't making 30 calls a day, and who's making 50? Okay, so they just wanted the outliers. And so again, we can take our solution and just then give them the information they want in a sort of snapshot manner. So, you know, they are time poor, but they want to be information rich.
Because that is the thing. Often there's too much data for people to even begin to make a difference to their organisation. So being able to, like you say, extract the exceptions to the rule could be really powerful.
And I think that's the sort of movement, if you will, from reporting to insight, which is, okay, you move from, okay, like here's a ton of data, great, fantastic. But, you know, not many people understand that data or the context of the data. So what we're trying to do is work with our channel partners to allow them to be able to produce the insights needed for specific businesses. So if it's, I don't know, as we said, veterinaries, opticians, maybe things, anywhere where you've got, you know, potentially a high value transaction and you've got immediacy, then, you know, producing reports specifically around that. So, you know, how much money did you potentially miss today with the number of missed calls? So, you know, we run large amounts of trials with our end customers as well via channel. That's given us some really good insight into, you know, what does good look like versus not so good in the industry. And I'll give you an example. In primary healthcare, we saw 2 primary healthcare practices, one which was missing about 50% of their inbound calls, versus another one which was missing probably less than 10%. And the delta in that, you could actually see it in the way they'd set up combinations of both things like as call queuing, in terms of their ACDs and so on, and also the digitization of the business. So it was really interesting to see, not only from the calling side of things, from a channel standpoint, you could then get into how you help that business improve both their traditional telephony environment, but then potentially moving into how digital can help them as well.
Definitely, and obviously a very clear way to keep everyone happy.
Yeah. You have to create ways of win-win. Okay, so you know, from our standpoint, you know, we're working with the channel to help them deliver that extra value, because ultimately, you know, we are kind of the conduit into the end customer business. We serve that data to allow them to understand things.
Definitely. And just finally, what trends do you expect to see in the UCaaS market kind of in the months and years ahead? What are you seeing on the horizon?
Yeah, I think one interesting one, I'm not so sure if it's, well, yeah, it is probably a trend. I mean, it's post the pandemic, you know, you've got, you know, you've got the home workers, you've got hybrid, and then you've got office. And we're seeing businesses starting to analyze in quite some detail the productivity of employees across those 3 environments to understand what's working best or what's not working. Okay, and you're seeing quite a bit of drift back and forth as a result of that. So that's one area where we see our analytics being applied a lot more. Secondly, obviously, Teams has done huge amounts in the collaboration space. So what's it, over 300 million users now using Teams for collaboration. About, I think it's somewhere around 20 million or so using the PSTN capability. That's growing quickly. So with the requirements for customers to apply our analytics into a Teams phone system environment, use cases don't actually change that much. People are still processing large amounts of inbound calls, and whether you're doing that on WebEx calling, Broadwork, Zoom, or Teams, the phone system is still the phone system with the same types of functions. So we're doing that. And I think, you know, the big area for us next is the application of AI technology linked to the business management system. So you've got that, you know, that customer or client coming in on the call. So you want to be able to correlate that to who they are. So is it a high value client? Is it a low value client, etc.? What were their previous engagements like? What's their sentiment? Bring those things together. Okay, so integrating with the business management system, be that CRM or something more specific to the vertical, and then applying AI techniques to assist the operator in making sure that customer is serviced more effectively. So that's a big one for us at the moment. And then how you weave that in with the digital channel. So you're probably seeing some more announcements from us on those particular areas over the next few months.
Okay. We'll have to keep our eyes open for that. And obviously makes sense that a data and analytics and insights organization would be looking to do some stuff in the AI space, because obviously AI is nothing without the data that goes into it.
Correct. It's you know, it's what you learn from it, and getting the sort of, I guess, the learning models by vertical. And I think, you know, we've actually created quite a lot of IP in that area with understanding what happens on a vertical by vertical basis. So we're hoping to apply some of that.
Oh, lovely. We'll definitely keep an eye out for that in the months ahead. So that brings us to the end of this episode of Comms Business Live. Thanks, Mike, for sharing all of those thoughts with us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks very much, Charlotte.
If you'd like to follow up with Mike and the Akixi team, there are some links in the video description to point you in the right direction. But otherwise, thanks everyone for joining us, and goodbye.